Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so if you're gearing up for an Agile Practitioner exam, you probably already know the drill. You're facing endless multiple-choice questions that, let's be honest, can sometimes feel pretty dry and totally detached from reality. But today, we're going to change that. We're transforming that dry list of situational exam questions into a really dynamic, agile survival guide. We aren't just here to memorize answers. We are breaking down the exact mindset you need to absolutely master these scenarios and, more importantly, apply them to your actual teams. Picture this for a second. You're about to kick off a massive project, and a powerful stakeholder literally slams their hand on the desk and demands that absolutely all requirements must be fixed before a single line of code is written. Do you agree? How do you respond to that kind of pressure without losing your agile footing? Well, this is exactly the kind of nightmare situation you're going to be tested on. Okay, let's dive right into this. Think of this explainer as your 4-part playbook for untangling real-world project chaos. We'll be covering 1. Navigating shifting project scope. 2. Troubleshooting agile warning signs. 3. Resolving team conflicts. And 4. Engaging difficult stakeholders.
Starting off with Part 1, Navigating Shifting Project Scope. Imagine you're halfway through a seriously grueling 2-week iteration. The team is hyper-focused, heads down, working toward that sprint goal. And suddenly, bam, a curveball hits. A stakeholder pops in and requests a critical feature change right now, usually promising it's only going to take 5 minutes, right? The team is obviously worried this is going to blow up their commitment. So what is the very first thing you do as an Agile practitioner? Do you just reject it? Do you drop everything else and build it? The actual Agile response here is structured, and it's highly collaborative. We don't just immediately add it, and we don't flatly reject it either. First, we welcome the change in principle. Then, we sit down and discuss the actual impact with the stakeholder. And finally, we evaluate the backlog reprioritization collaboratively. Basically, we figure out the real value and the cost together, as a team. You know, you'll often see exam questions where a product owner just keeps adding stories during iteration planning, way beyond the team's actual capacity. When this happens, our natural, rigid reflex is to either just accept all the stories and burn the team out, or arbitrarily extend the sprint duration. Both of those, totally incorrect. The actual agile action is pushing back and negotiating based on real, sustainable capacity. So keep this takeaway punch in mind. Agile embraces evolving requirements. It is literally a foundational concept. We don't fear scope change, and we certainly don't demand fixed requirements up front like that stakeholder from our earlier scenario. We embrace evolution, but provided those changes are evaluated and integrated collaboratively, always respecting the team's capacity.
Moving inward to Part 2, Troubleshooting Agile Warning Signs.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it creates a super powerful diagnostic matrix for 3 distinct warning signs, mapping them directly to their agile remedies. First, if you see a flat burn-down chart for several days, your remedy is to investigate impediments with the team. You don't just report failure to management. Second, if velocity drops consecutively, you need a root cause retrospective. And third, if the team is shipping fast but technical debt is growing, the remedy isn't to just ignore it until release, it's to actively allocate backlog capacity to refactoring. Think about it. When velocity drops for 3 consecutive sprints, human nature kind of dictates panic. The lizard reflex, which is often presented as a really tempting trap on the exam, is to mandate overtime or ruthlessly replace low-performing team members. But the agile action? Stop. Take a breath and facilitate a retrospective to identify the actual root causes of the slowdown. And why do we choose retrospectives over punishment? Well, because continuous improvement and team self-reflection are core Agile principles. We have to trust the team. If velocity is dropping, the system is likely broken, not the people. Relying on rigid enforcement or threats completely breaks trust, whereas facilitating self-reflection builds resilience and actually solves the underlying problem.
All right, transitioning to Part 3, Resolving Team Conflicts.
I want you to step into the role of a mediator for a second. You've got 2 senior developers on your team, and they passionately, strongly disagree on a technical implementation. Maybe it's a huge architectural choice, or maybe they're just fighting over tabs versus spaces. Voices are getting raised, progress is totally stalled. What is your absolute best response to get the sprint back on track?
The exam is going to tempt you with easy ways out here. The rigid reflex is thinking you need to act like a traditional boss, that the project manager should just decide the technical path to end the argument or immediately escalate it up the executive chain. But listen, you aren't a dictator. The Agile action is to facilitate a collaborative resolution. You guide the developers to evaluate the pros and cons together until they reach a solid consensus. And this collaborative approach, it applies to team-wide conflicts too. If you have a distributed Agile team experiencing frequent misunderstandings across time zones, the incorrect instinct might be to reduce communication or channel it all through one person just to avoid noise. But that fails completely. The best solution is actually to open things up and increase transparent communication tools so everyone shares the exact same context.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this: Agile practitioners act as facilitators. Whenever you see an exam question asking how to handle a team problem, immediately eliminate the answers where you are commanding, controlling, or escalating. Look for the answer where you are an enabler, a coach, and a facilitator of team success.
Zooming out for our final theme, Part 4, Engaging Difficult Stakeholders. Okay, here is an incredibly common frustration. You've worked hard, you've built the increment, but your key stakeholders, literally the people paying for this, they repeatedly ghost your iteration reviews. They just don't show up. What is your best action to fix this huge disconnect?
It is so tempting to go with the rigid reflex here. Just stop inviting them, deliver the product without their feedback, or angrily escalate them to executive management. But honestly, that defeats the entire purpose of Agile. The Agile action is a conversation. You sit down with them, discuss engagement expectations, and find out exactly why they aren't coming. Maybe the meeting is too long or at a bad time. You adapt and you adjust the review format to meet their needs.
Consider one final scenario for a moment. The stakeholders finally show up. You deliver the increment, and their feedback completely invalidates your previous assumptions. The market has changed, or they realize they actually need something entirely different. The work you just did is essentially obsolete. What now? This right here illustrates the ultimate test of Agile maturity. When that roadmap breaks, you must reassess the backlog and adapt immediately. You absolutely do not ignore the feedback, and you do not stubbornly continue down the original roadmap just because it was the plan. The plan serves the product doesn't serve the plan. And that reminds us of the grounding principle that ties all of these thematic case studies together into one cohesive mindset. Agile welcomes change, but changes should be evaluated collaboratively. Whether it's a scope change mid-sprint, a random drop in velocity, a fight between developers, or stakeholders changing their minds at the very last second, we welcome the reality of the situation, and we work together as a team to find the absolute best path forward.
That flexible mindset is exactly what the exam is testing for, and honestly, it's what makes a truly great practitioner. So I'll leave you with this. When the inevitable chaos hits your very next project, are you going to panic and enforce rigid rules, or will you step up, adapt, and facilitate success? Keep that question in the back of your mind, apply these concepts, and you're going to absolutely crush both the exam and your real-world projects. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.